kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa dagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinagang tula, kawin sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at karoon niya kailan pamay di magdidinig. Luma ng araw ng walhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling ko. Ang hindi kaya na pagkay mga aking, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. This is Abby Modino, the ICMA UP Student Chapter Co-President, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. Thank you. We are glad that you are joining us today. We are also glad that we have as our strategic partners the Alumni Association of Asian Institute of Management, AIM, Villora and Saulog Law Offices, Raza Consulting Group Incorporated, SALT PH, Philippines Community Organization, University of the Philippines Public Administration Foundation. And thank you also, we are glad we have our media partners for today's event, ABS-CBN, News and ANC, Bicol Standard, GMA Network Incorporated, Kapisanan ng mga broadcasters sa Pilipinas o KBP, Manila Broadcasting Corporation, TV5 and Signal TV. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Philippines, and good morning, San Francisco, and also Tennessee, California, USA. Sorry. May I also read the rules for today's event? First, you have to identify yourself. Set your Zoom username under your full name. All participants will be automatically muted. You can post your questions and comments in the chat box and in our Facebook page. The session may also be accessed via the Facebook Live through fb.com/ICMA Philippines. E-certificates will also be provided. And so now may I give you, to give the opening remarks, Attorney Alder Dilioro. He is a managing partner of the Villora and Saulog Law Offices and senior lecturer at UP NCPAG. Good morning, Alder. Good morning, everyone. Attorney Alder.
Morning, Abby.
Hi.
Welcome to the ICMA UP NCPAG Student Chapter second installment of its leadership webinar series under the theme Resilient Leadership, Manifestation of Strength of a Leader. We are humbled and truly honored with the presence of our panel speakers who have generously agreed to share their knowledge and expertise to all of us despite their busy schedules. This leadership webinar series aims to help the public better understand the crucial role of leadership in major junctures of our history, especially at the city or municipal level. We hope to incite meaningful discussions among all of us, the global citizens, as we join the great debate on the many issues that affect the whole humanity, such as climate change, sustainable development, inclusive growth, and even the most recent threat that we all face today, the COVID-19 pandemic. ICMA is a leading association of local government professionals dedicated to supporting and creating thriving communities throughout the world. We are proud here at the UP NCPAG to share this vision through our webinar leadership series. Today, we are delighted to have the presence of our very own colleague in the UP NCPAG, being himself a lecturer in the college, the Honorable MMDA Chairman Benjamin Benher Abalos, a 5-termer mayor and a former congressman for the city of Mandaluyong. Of course, we are eager to have the young and the brilliant lawyer, one of the 10 outstanding young men in 2021, Attorney Leslie Cordero, the Senior Specialist, Disaster Risk Management Specialist of the World Bank. We are also thankful for the support of the ICMA USA headquarters for paving the way for us to invite international speakers that will provide us a comparative perspective. For today's webinar, we are pleased to have Mr. Seth Summer, the City Manager of the City of Athens in Tennessee, USA. He is an active member of the ICMA, having served on many committees, including the International Committee and the Conference Host Committee. Finally, I would like to give our special thanks to our mentors who are always there guiding and supporting us. Our panel moderator and host, Dr. Joaquin Gonzalez, and our panel reactor, Professor and former Dean of UP-NCPAG, Dr. Maria Fe Villamejor Mendoza. They are two of the most brilliant yet kind-hearted people that I know. Of course, we wish to thank our Dean, Dean Dan Sakin, our faculty advisor, as well as the professors and students of the UP-NCPAG for their support and their participation. We are thankful as well to our strategic and media partners, as well as to our sponsors for their invaluable contributions to make this event possible. And finally, to the hundreds of participants in attendance today's webinar from various sectors of society, welcome. And now, without further ado, let us officially begin. I would like to call on our moderator host, a dear friend, Dr. Joaquin Gonzalez of the Golden Gate University, San Francisco, USA, the mentor in the profession of our student chapter and a longtime ICMA member. Good morning, Dr. J.
Good morning, Alder. Good morning, Abby. Thank you very much to dynamic presidents of the ICMA UP-NCPAG student chapter. Thank you very much for organizing number 2 and putting this as a feather in your cap. I am so pleased to be with you today, straight here from San Francisco, California, to be moderating this wonderful panel. Everybody, you are in for a treat. We have 3 rock stars in the house tonight that will, talk to us about resilient leadership. We are in very trying times, whether you're in the Philippines or in the United States. So we need these 3 rock stars to tell us about their experiences and about some of the practices that some of the cities all over the world are supposed to be using to become more resilient and become more adaptive during these trying times. I want to thank again Alder and Abby for their friendship. I know you're really friends because you chose a picture of me to put in the poster that was from 30 years ago, and that maybe you did that on purpose so that Chairman Abalos would recognize me as a student, when he was a student on campus, and so that Dean Fe and Dan Sagil will also recognize me from 30 years ago. Thank you so much. All right, so now I'd like to introduce our first rock star, and Alder has already given you a little bit of snippet about his background, but I'm so happy having grown up in Santa Ana in Manila, right beside Mandaluyong, and every day going to my school in Mandaluyong and seeing Calentong and Boni Avenue, of course, the Palenque there in Mandaluyong. So Mandaluyong is my second home. And I'm going to introduce to you a son of Mandaluyong, somebody who has been represented Mandaluyong in Congress, somebody who has been a long-time mayor of Mandaluyong, and somebody who's now the mayor of mayors as the chairman of the MMDA. Some of the awards alone. He was president of the League of Cities of the Philippines and president of the Union of Local Authorities in the Philippines. An awardee not just domestically in the Philippines, but by the United Nations the highest public service award of the UN given to him in 2015. He has made Mandaluyong the tiger city, the friendly city, the city that it is right now, and he's doing that Metro Manila wide. So we have our first rock star, Chairman Benjamin Ben-Hur Abalos Jr. Sir, take over.
Well, thank you so much, Jay. You know, it's different if someone who's your schoolmate is introducing you. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Attorney Alder, Professor Mendoza. Good morning. Of course, Dean Danny, and to my fellow speakers, organizers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. I'm Benjamin Abalos Jr. As I've been introduced, I've been mayor of Mandaluyong before, a congressman, and now the chairman of MMDA. I'll just share my screen. Okay. No. Sorry. I'm sorry. Just. Okay. Just some technical things that my staff is fixing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can
Alder?
hear you now. Thank you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Jay, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
Okay. Now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I became mayor, congressman of Mandaluyong, and I took over MMDA on January 11, 2021, just this year. You know, the office of MMDA started as a Metro Manila Commission during the martial law. It was First Lady Imelda Marcos who was then governor. After People Power, it became MMA, which is headed by the mayors. Every 6 months, they will interchange. This was the interim until it changed finally to MMDA. And the first thing I did when I was mayor was hold a meeting, take an inventory of the people, and have a go to my bosses who are the mayors of Metro Manila. And not only that, also go to different national agencies like DOTR, DPWH, etc. And first of all is good housekeeping. We took stock of whatever facilities we have. At that time, there was a problem with of course, up to now about this pandemic. So we have this quarantine area. We visited these facilities on whatever things we could do to improve this. And we also are hosting right now what is called as the One Hospital Command. This One Hospital Command, the agency took the initiative to host this One Hospital Command in coordination with Department of Health, Department of Tourism, and BCDA. The facility serves as the national government's unified response to the pandemic through coordination, referral of COVID patients to health facilities, hospitals, medical transportation, and temporary treatment and monitoring facilities. And we also have our building we're going to transfer after 40 years. And not only that, we took note of our employees. You know, I was so shocked to learn that 25% are not working because they are senior citizens. So I've told our senior citizens, if possibly they want early retirement, I could re-employ any of their recommendations. It could be their relatives so that there will be no economic displacement. And at the same time, we have hired 1,000 traffic enforcers to make sure that right now there is visibility of the agency in the streets of Metro Manila. Now, let's go to the mandate of Metro Manila, since I only have 10 minutes right now and I've used up 2 minutes already. Now, number one, we are now trying to upgrade our flood control facilities. They are about 20 to 40 years of age since the era of martial law. Right now, we've got 23 large, 14 small, and 17 relief pumping stations, which make up a total of 54 pumping stations. Of these 54, 34 will be for rehabilitation. And it will also involve the construction of new 20 pumping stations in coordination or in partnership with DPWH, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the World Bank. And when I took over, of course, one of the mandate is traffic. You will see in this picture is the bus carousel on the leftmost portion of EDSA. A problem when it comes to what we call as the U-turns. Since they have to close this on the right portion below, they close it. No? So we really have to fix this one because there will be traffic and vehicles will tend to go to areas where there are underground U-turns. No? So it's a long drive. And what we did is right now we've got this design. This is now what we call the elevated bus ramps. So it took me just January, now it's already March just for this design, and now we're having this for the procedure of them constructing it for the bidding procedures. So this elevated bus ramp would mean that the buses will go through these elevated bus ramps, thereby allowing vehicles to take a U-turn underneath it. So this is the proposal for this U-turn slots in the whole of EDSA. Another thing I would like to inform everyone is right now, probably a month or 2 months from now, we are going to inaugurate for mobility our bike sharing project. This bike sharing project is with Department of Transportation, DOTR, and with the World Bank. And Metro Manila, for these bikes where anyone can avail of and just place it in another station. And not only that, you will notice right now that there are a lot. This is a project of DOTR, DPWH, and of course, MMDA. We are also helping them in main areas. In the event traffic would really be avoided, we would have to probably reduce this bike lane, or if not, transfer it to another site. So that is more or less the conditions. So as I am talking right now, you will see in the main areas, in the main thoroughfares of Metro Manila, these bike lanes being constructed for the mobility of the Metro Manilans. And likewise, it is part of our project that we have this elevated walkway, or bicycle lane along EDSA. This is about 1.85 billion. We're going to construct it. It will be up for bidding. But since funds are not yet secured right now, we are coordinating with the DOTR for the Greenways project. But as soon as the funds are available, we're going to have this constructed so that people will just walk. In EDSA, they will be encouraged to walk. Likewise, the Metro Manila Intelligent Transport System, we continue on upgrading this system as far as the objective of achieving smart city status. So this will entail advancement in CCTVs, traffic system, as well as online services such as cashless payments of violation, quick reporting of accidents, traffic concerns, etc. Okay. Now is my pet project. If we talk of mobility, we're just concentrated on the mass transport. Those are very important. LRT, MRT, and the buses. But we must also exhaust what we call the river mobility. Right now, what we have are the Pasig River, Laguna de Bay, and the Manila Bay. Right now, what we have is the existing ferry service, and this is more or less the Pasig River route. What we intend to do is connect the three. Number one, we've got a route from Cavite City, which will go to part of Rojas Boulevard. What we intend to do is build a station right now in Tramuros so that it could connect with the Cavite route, so that it will now traverse. If you're from Cavite, you will go down here and then go through Chinatown, go through Manila, go through Makati, go to San Juan, Quezon City, and then ultimately up to Taguig. And from this area, you could also go to Marikina, and at least people from Rodriguez Rizal and part of San Mateo will also be serviced. And not only that, also from Taguig, go now to Cardona and possibly later on to Calamba, Laguna. Now, what have we done so far? So far, we're going to purchase about 7 more of these boats and make sure that there will be regular hours every 30 minutes, repair the terminals, and not only that, have a docking station and a repair facilities at Napindan. I already discussed this with the Laguna Lake Administrator Medina, so that Napindan could be used by MMDA. And also about the water hyacinths, yung water lilies. Later, I'm going to discuss what we're going to do with this water lilies. We're talking now about flooding. This is just a simple proposal that I have. If we're going to look at the flooding of Metro Manila, all of this waters really comes from the Sierra Madre Range. Once it goes down, it will pass through Marikina, and some will go to Laguna de Bay, others to Manila Bay. But the problem is, once it goes to Laguna de Bay, it's just there. But what we really need, as has been before advised, is a Parañaque spillway from Laguna de Bay that will cut through Manila Bay. But right now it's quite impossible because land is so expensive in Parañaque. You've got several subdivisions and commercial areas. But what I am espousing is different. Since we have the subway right now that could go underneath, what we could do is instead bore through Sucat Road, get the main roads of Parañaque, and have a spillway from Laguna de Bay to Manila Bay. I would suggest this proposal. MMDA would have a thorough studies of this, and for us, this could be the final solution to the flooding of Metro Manila. Okay, now, this is called the Metro Manila Solid Waste Management. As what we have right now, since the different LGUs have their own autonomy under the local government code, they will have their own laws. But with this study, it's about the 2-year study, it's the master plan for everything, so that the whole 17 cities could we could have probably a resolution that we could adapt this very thorough study. We are now undertaking this. And this solid waste granulator, this is already in existence. Actually, I inaugurated this about 2 weeks ago. If you will see on the picture, there's some garbage near the flood pumping stations. What happens is this garbage will cause damage to our pumping stations. So what we instead do is harvest this garbage. Some we convert to fertilizers, and most we convert into bricks, which we used for our own projects. And for me, this is an educational thing, this sacks of rice, and we have computed. If one person will go to this vehicle, he will, let's say, bring some newspaper or some garbage, we will just give him sardines. There's a computation for this. It's more of replicating this to every barangay so that it could become a good practice in Metro Manila. Garbage, groceries for garbage. Okay, now we're talking of the water lily I was telling you about a while ago. What do we intend to do with this? You know, water lily have one character. There is this plastic-like material in the middle of water lily. And we found out that it is slow burning. It is a good material for what we call charcoal briquettes. And we could sell them. No, we could convert them because we could even sell them to entities like Andox or those who's into barbecues. No, so it is a good possible form of energy. And what we intend to do is after getting all of this is educate communities along the Pasig River and turn this technology to them. Now, when I did an inventory of the solid waste management of Metro Manila, I really found out that all three sites are all privately owned. All three sites private. There is no government-owned sanitary landfill. What I intend to do is purchase on our own a government sanitary landfill. Possibly study ways the host would allow any kind of sanitary landfill in their place. But, and there's a big but if we present them a good plan, like probably a waste to energy program, etc., it could still be done. So this is what one of my priority, to find a sanitary landfill that is fully owned by MMDA or by the government. And lastly, this is one of the things I would like to do is have parks in Metro Manila. Have parks. You know, our problem is always urban decay. So if we were going to look at my presentation, it's all about fresh air. It's all about clean park, a lot of difference here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I for the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. That was very good talk. It reminded me so much that maybe with what you're doing, Chairman, that eventually, like what I was doing, solid waste management initiatives you're doing, and the walkability, the pedestrianism, the bikeability, it seems like you're describing San Francisco and not my hometown of Manila there anymore. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for what you're doing. Now, the second rock star that I'm about to introduce to you somehow relates in background to what Chairman Avalos is describing. Remember, he talked about reducing flooding. Remember, he talked about the disaster risks that are there right now in Manila. Well, our second rock star has a disaster risk management specialist background, and she's now working at the World Bank and is one of the senior advisors in this area. But she started out her public service, out in the Philippine government. And the last position she held was as undersecretary at the office of the president. So we're very fortunate to have her share with us both her Philippine and her global perspective now on disaster risk management, resilience, all of this, including climate change, if she can, in the 10 minutes that we're about to give to her. So everybody, please join me in welcoming with a virtual round of applause, Attorney Leslie Y. Cordero. Attorney Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jay, and truly a pleasure to be part of this conversation. Good morning, good evening to our friends who are watching all over. It's very insightful to hear insights and experiences about resilient leadership in the field of disasters and crisis. Can you see my slide now?
Yes, okay. Leslie.
Okay. So we're talking about resilient leadership. And in the cover slide, you can see that I was highlighting a lot of women. I want to compensate and highlight that in a panel of 3 or 4 people, there's one. So we hope that in the future, there will be more women who will be highlighted to talk about their resilient stories as well as their experiences. And we sure do have a lot of them, especially now at the front lines of this pandemic. So what are some of the insights that we have gathered in every disaster, in every crisis? We see several challenges and opportunities, right? Because after experiencing 20 typhoons year in, year out, plus the earthquakes, flooding, storm surges, plus this pandemic and the volcanic eruption, these are some of the things that we have learned, that a disaster or crisis highlights the strengths and weaknesses of our structure, systems, and governance. It also highlights the ability or inability of our structure, government, and people to innovate and be creative. Also speaks about the flexibility or inflexibility of our policies, systems, and delivery mechanisms. We often complain, right? Why the services are so delayed. But these are some of the things that structures, people, governments, and decision makers are looking at. And it also highlights, of course, the resilience and heroism of the people. Wherever you are, you can see people self-organize whenever there is a disaster to respond as well as to recover. And then, of course, it highlights the kind of leaders that we have in our respective organizations as well as in public office. It also unmasks the character, integrity, and credibility of our public officials. So very exciting. But let me tell you my story. So I started my resilient leadership journey in this field back in 2012, 2013, when I was at the office of the president. And there was the strongest typhoon that made landfall by far globally. And this was Typhoon Yolanda, or internationally known as Typhoon Haiyan, in 2013. But what people do not realize, or the global world is not looking at, is that before Typhoon Haiyan landed in the Philippines, there were 2 other major disasters that struck the Philippines. It was on September 5 when there was a Zamboanga siege, a human-induced disaster. Fast forward 3 weeks after, October 15, there was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Bohol and Cebu City. And then fast forward November 8, that was when all hell broke loose. You see the numbers, you see the total losses and damage as well as the impact. But the level of devastation, the horrors, and the experience of those people who were affected in those areas couldn't be quantified. Imagine 14 provinces, 171 cities and municipalities across 6 regions of the country were affected. And that was by far the most challenging, considering the sheer number of local government units across the regions that were affected. And here, it taught me a lot of things in terms of lessons, what to do, how to prepare better. And a few things I've learned is that preparedness is key. There's always a need to anticipate, invest, and simulate. The faster we respond to disasters, it is not based on the plans that were already prepared on paper, but how fast the people would adjust and adapt depending on the situation and fix the plan. Second, the value of leadership, command responsibility. In every disaster, somebody has to decide and command, and all the other agencies, other stakeholders has to follow. Third, collaborative governance. Better coordination with stakeholders is needed. Crucial also to highlight that in every disaster, the need to build consensus and collaborative governance is there, because government do not have the monopoly of solutions as well as action. So how do you leverage on various stakeholders, how as well as the messenger? And we all know that in every crisis, we need to hear a solid singular voice who is sharing information and giving people the calm as well as the confidence that we need. And then, of course, information is gold. The availability and accuracy of data is very important. And then after going through everything, once you're already at the other side, the knowledge that you need to strive for resiliency, building back better, faster, smarter, healthier, and safer. So these are some of the lessons that we have learned from past disasters. But after doing all these, what is also crucial is to be able to highlight the need to advocate this at the regional and global arena, because lessons learned from one country can be replicated in others. They can customize what we have done in the Philippines, as well as share some of these basic principles and concepts. And the realization is that some of these learnings and insights are portable, because when countries hit by a disaster or crisis, they go through the same things. But the challenge always is the level of capacity and adaptability and flexibility of some of our policies and laws in certain areas. Here you can see a few photos of leveraging and leaning on our ASEAN neighbors during Typhoon Haiyan, and also the negotiations of the Philippine government in Japan for the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction for 2015 to 2030. So how many officials are there to be able to provide a few insights and let other countries also glean from our experiences? Learning all those lessons from a disaster, there is a very important insight that the Philippines as well as other countries are doing right now, especially in East Asia and the Pacific. So there you can see the policy shift towards proactive risk management and the focus on preparedness and resilience. We have looked at three buckets or three pillars: physical resilience, financial resilience, as well as social resilience, to manage climate and disaster risk issues and concerns. So we're talking about physical resilience. You can see most of these are templated, but depending on which country, depending on the technology available, it's being customized. Development of early warning systems, highlighting that climate change and disaster risk reduction could be a core consideration in planning as well as investments for key sectors. Disaster preparedness, of course, preparing to recover even before the disaster hits. And then, of course, Metro Manila, as well as San Francisco, is very prone to earthquake. So seismic risk and resilience programs, making sure that our schools are safe, risk finance and insurance strategy, looking at various financial instruments like the catastrophe bonds, leveraging on capital markets, insurance, as well as contingent financing facilities. But equally important, I think, are the social safety nets, developing emergency cash transfers program for disaster affected areas, shock responsive social protection safety nets, as well as highlighting that when there is a disaster, there is a need to quantify the impact on socioeconomic welfare and well-being more than the infrastructure damage and loss. So over time, the World Bank has provided some of these instruments. I'm highlighting the instruments that we have provided for the Philippines over a period of a decade. So from 2010 to 2020, these are some of the things that we have done. CATDDO is a contingent financing credit, it's 500 million. But what I want you to highlight are some of the policy reforms, like helping the government implement the Philippine DRRM law or disaster law, project and financial monitoring and platform for disaster risk reduction and management. And then from this basic technical support to be able to help government has decided to also look at more complex and challenging problems during disasters. So in 2015, you can see that it's not just the implementation of the DRM law, but it's moving towards integration of climate and DRR in building code provisions, investing in safer schools program, safer hospitals program, and then looking at the most vulnerable local government units and developing a program called the Catastrophe Risk Insurance Program for local government units, so that when a disaster happens, LGUs will not be waiting on national government on when they will get their budgets or access to the National Disaster Fund. Currently, the World Bank is supporting the Philippine government with this DRM development policy loan. And here, this was approved last April 2020. And this was the first money out the door to support the government also in the pandemic assistance, as well as this social safety net distribution. So these are some of the things that were done by the World Bank together with the Philippine government. But it is not enough that we highlight what is done in the Philippines. What is crucial also is to reach out to broader audience, to talk about narratives and stories of having to work through certain policies and systems to be able to implement some of these reforms in the field of disaster risk management and crisis preparedness. And you can see that I've always highlighted the need to go regional, to look at some of the more similar issues and challenges that our ASEAN neighbors are going through, and sharing the story of the Philippines, learning from the insights and experiences of Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand in various sectors. But the realization also that it's not easy to get your message across. I always found myself one among five, one among seven in a room talking about DRM and crisis preparedness. So I think it's high time for us to encourage more young people who are interested in action, adventure, as well as the thrill and adrenaline rush of solving problems, delivering in times of disasters and crisis, to join the field of DRM. Let me tell you the story on my experience in Myanmar and Fiji. So this was post Typhoon Yolanda, and I left government already. I left government May 1, 2015, and I think around September 2015, I got a call from a country director in Myanmar World Bank office saying that the Myanmar government wanted to get somebody from the Philippine government who can share the experience of Typhoon Yolanda, how government managed the rehabilitation and recovery and response efforts, what were the challenges, and how they could do better and learn from those challenges. And so I flew to Myanmar. Entering the room, I found myself again. I was one or two women in a room of 20 people. And most of their ministers, as well as senior advisors, were male. And I wasn't given a seat at the table because they thought I was a secretary or interpreter of our task team leader. But okay, I sat quietly at the back. And what is good was that our team leader introduced me and said that, Mr. Ministers, let me introduce Leslie Cordero, a former Deputy Minister of the Philippine government who did the Typhoon Yolanda rehabilitation and recovery efforts. And all the gentlemen in the room did a double take and said, "What are you doing there? Come, sit with us." So what I did was brought a chair to the table and started talking about the Philippine experience. And my realization is that in dealing with various countries, various cultures, as well as political dynamics, the key is to understand your counterparts, who you're talking to. And to get your message across, they have to buy into what you are talking about, as well as to embrace you, because you're not talking about the technical stuff at the get-go, but you're talking about the shared experience that you went through the same challenges and the same issues and concerns, and you are there to help them. And the realization also there is that in that room, the discussion of ministers and leaders, I think most public officials are wired the same way, in the sense that they are thinking of almost the same solutions to this disasters and crisis. So the Myanmar government was asking, we want to do cash transfers and we want to bring the money down quickly to the people. And it was also because a few months after there will be an election. So you can see that some of these officials are thinking the same things. And it took an opportunity to be able to say that, Mr. Ministers, with due respect, if we cannot just copy what the Philippines has done in terms of the cash transfers during Typhoon Haiyan for the Myanmar floods and landslides, simply because Philippine government had the architecture on the ground, because for the past 10 years, the conditional cash transfer mechanism was being developed. So growing pains, birth pains, we went through that. And here, there's nothing. So we need to find a better way to have solutions that would fit into certain conditions in other countries, but also understanding the political dynamics. And I think resilient leadership and providing good advice in times of disasters and crisis would take that. The other experience was a year after, during Fiji's tropical cyclone Winston. This was, I think, the strongest that hit Fiji at that time. Again, I found myself as the only woman in the room. But when I was introduced again, the same way, the senior officials took me aside and had a one-on-one conversation. And they said, can we be very candid with you? We want to understand how to deal with the international organizations and the United Nations. Because for countries or small island states, they found themselves being suffocated with a lot of international organizations parachuting in the area with good intentions because they want to help. But here they found themselves as government not knowing how to push back, because everyone wants a piece of their time as well as attention, and everyone wants fast solutions as well as answers. And here the Fiji government said, what do we do now? And I told them what we did in the Philippines. When UN declared a level 3 category of a disaster for Typhoon Yolanda, everyone parachuted. The rest of the world flew in and landed in Tacloban. And we had the coordination mess that you see every major disaster. And I said, it's okay to take a breath, take a step back, and push back on these international organizations. And I am saying that even if I am from World Bank, because of that experience I had during Typhoon Yolanda. And they were very appreciative. And then second, I told them the importance of transparency and accountability, and getting the message across that government is in control, and that assistance from various countries will be given to certain organizations and certain sectors. So that was another lesson that we have learned in the Philippines. But aside from all these experiences at the international arena, let me go back to what happened in the Philippines. So working in World Bank, we had an opportunity to help and support the government for the Bangon Marawi rehabilitation and recovery efforts. And my realization there is that most of the lessons that we have learned from the disasters are to some extent portable and can be used for post-conflict rehabilitation and recovery. And it's important to get an opportunity to help remind government that you have those experiences already. All you need to do is take stock and quickly customize some of those planning templates, some of those financing options to be able to quickly respond to the Bangon Marawi rehabilitation and recovery. And my realization also is that it's crucial to understand cultural sensitivities and to understand the undertones. Because while in a disaster, everyone starting on the same foot, for a post-conflict or a human-induced disaster, there are other variables in play, and we have to be very sensitive and conscious, because you don't want to exacerbate some of these drivers of conflict as you do the rehabilitation and recovery efforts. A lot of consultations, a lot of listening instead of telling what to do.
1 minute, attorney.
So what are some of the things that we need to do, some of the essential skills in leading teams before, during, and after disasters and crisis? So crucial, leadership and ability to make tough decisions, not to be scared when you are in that situation. The knack for building networks and nurturing relationships, as well as being resourceful, creative, and innovative. And then very important is the ability to adjust, adapt, and deliver or execute. We need smart planners, and we need to master the roles as well as the execution of tasks. So each agency, each organization, the community, civil society, as well as academia have various roles. So how do we do this right? And then being a good communicator, getting that message across, be heard, be seen, as well as be believed. And then another equally important skill or quality is character, integrity, and credibility. So it's so easy to lose ourselves in certain situations, but know that these are some of the qualities that you don't just leave out the door. And then finally, grit, heart, and tenacity. So these are some of the things that we can leave with. And before I end, what is crucial is that it is important to change mindsets and build a culture of preparedness to be able to help communities, governments, and stakeholders anticipate the impacts of disasters and prepare to respond and recover even before disasters happen. So on that note, thank you very much for this opportunity, and good morning and good evening.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Leslie. Thank you so much, daghang salamat for that talk. I picked up collaborative governance, leveraging and leaning on international partners, especially ASEAN, proactive risk management. I'm always thinking of the CDRAS, the LCCAPs, the DRRMs, everything we do at the local government level, right? There's disaster risk financing, definitely. It takes a lot of infrastructure to come out with the resilience and adaptation and mitigation. And lastly, women power, very important from Attorney Leslie. Thank you so much for representing Filipinas globally and showing them what we are really made of. Okay, so now we got our third rock star. Thank you for your patience there. We still have one more presenter. And this presenter is in an organization that sponsored this talk. He and I are longtime members of the International City County Management Association. In the United States, 90% of our cities and municipalities are run by professional city managers. It's only the big cities like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York, San Francisco that are run by mayors. The rest of the cities around us are run by professional managers. So we're lucky today because we have one of them. In our next speaker is a credentialed city manager. In other words, he took a test, he studied, and he got credentialed. Very difficult to get. He is the city manager of the city of Athens in Tennessee, right? It seems like we have this, Greece or Roman, we have Ben-Hur, now we have Athens, book ending Attorney Leslie, in the middle there. But before joining the city of Athens, he was assistant city manager for the city of Savannah in Tennessee. ICMA, which he is in the international committee, is very much involved in the Philippines. We are in 8 CDI cities, Batangas City, Legazpi City, Puerto Princesa, Iloilo City, Tagbilaran, Jensan, Zamboanga City, and CDO. 8 CDICDs, ICMA's work under the Strengthening Urban Resilience for Growth with Equity program of USAID. And so I give to you one of the persons steering this in the international committee, our third rock star, Mr. Seth Sumner, City Manager of the City of Athens, Tennessee. Seth, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jay. Mabuhay to my friends in the Philippines. It is almost 10 p.m. here in Tennessee, and I'm so happy to be up a little bit late with you to share a message about economy and about healthcare. So let me go to share my screen here and get, let's see. All right, can everyone see my slides there?
Yes, we can see it, Seth.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, so we have endured now for more than a year this COVID-19 pandemic, and something that I know we're largely cringing as we hear those terms. We just want to go back to what we knew in 2019 as normal life. There are certainly some good lessons that we have all learned. There have been some losses that we've endured, and there will be a change in our world globally from this pandemic and what remains afterwards and how we approach things. So I want to, let's see, there we go. Talk about an economic transition that is occurring. It was already begun before the pandemic occurred, but the pandemic paired with our technology, globalization, the globalization of economies, and online retail sales brought on a change that largely, I believe, will be beneficial to future generations. It sped up the advancement of some of our technologies, but most of all, when we talk about economy, it changed how people buy products. Here in the United States, I know we are doing more and more online. Amazon is a huge retailer online. We can go search for our product, find the best price, click on it, and it's delivered maybe the same day to our house. And that's incredible. That was already happening pre-pandemic, but the pandemic sped that up, which means that some of our brick and mortar retail developments, our businesses, were hurt in that. So there are winners and losers in retail throughout the pandemic. And with that, our restaurants, some of those have been closed, but it doesn't change forever. The good business practices that existed and where we had good fiscal stability in businesses and in government such as ours, we endure this pandemic, we endure crisis, we endure, we become stronger, we become faster, we become better, and we're more resilient because we're adapting and innovating. I know that's a big focus of this right here. We talk about industry and workforce. In my community, before the pandemic, we had 3% unemployment. A few weeks into the pandemic, businesses were closed down. And so a lot of people who live paycheck to paycheck, who depend on tips because they're a waiter or a waitress, those kind of things, that all went away immediately. And so folks that depended on those dollars were no longer there. Our unemployment went up to 14% virtually overnight. Here we are a year later, and we're back down to 5% now. Our industries are doing well, but we're better utilizing technology to reach our friends, to do business, just as we are here tonight. And it's really incredible to see what's happening in our economies because of that. Our economy in Tennessee, in my town of Athens, is thriving. We are collecting more sales tax revenue now than we have ever collected before in the history of our 200-year-old city. And it's because we've been able to capitalize on taxing the online sales market just the year prior to the pandemic. So good timing on our part for that. But that means that we're able to increase revenue, that our businesses are thriving even during the pandemic, and that our workforce has gotten back into providing for their families. So I want to talk about health next. Health. If we do not have our health, then we have nothing. If we are not healthy, are not taking care of our family, then we can't go to work, we can't shop, and that harms the economy. And so we have to look at this as a pairing. We have to protect both the economy and people's health. And how do we do that during a pandemic that we have very little knowledge or understanding of early on? Communities, so that we don't have to close our businesses. So I sit with you today, and I'm very proud to say in our small community of 14,000 people, there was not a single mandate. There wasn't a closure. There was no emergency procedures put in place. I went live on Facebook every day for 60 days and shared the latest, best information about COVID-19 and what was happening in our community and how our people could help each other every day for 60 days. And I still do that once a week now, but every day's holiday, weekends, everything to inform our people. And more than that, I used, working virtually, my mobile device, and I collaborated with the county mayor. I collaborated with other governmental entities, with the Department of Health, with our governor's office, to make sure that everyone was on the same page so that there was not a panic, that there was not scare. We empowered our people with information. I think it's been said already here, communication is gold. I love that. Communication is key. So with that, I'm very proud of how things have been handled. I'm happy to see that we are working through this pandemic together. My heart is saddened by those families that have been hurt during this pandemic. And I am thankful that we have vaccines that are now being shared, that we are coming through this, and it looks like we will come through this stronger and more vibrant than ever. And that is something that this next generation of leaders that I'm speaking with right now, I was in your shoes, I was in your seat 11 years ago. You are going to go out into the world coming through this pandemic and what you've learned through it in your young life and become bold, strong, brilliant leaders. And I can't wait to see of the world that our children will inherit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, City Manager Seth. Really valuable nuggets of advice there. We really appreciate you. You're staying up late for us here. And our fellow ICM mayors in the Philippines really appreciate your staying up late, for us, 10 p.m. But, your lesson on adaptation and innovation that you've done, in the city of Athens is definitely very important. Incentivizing technology for online sales. I thought I was in Silicon Valley here in San Francisco. You talk about you incentivize them there, and actually as an anti-pandemic approach, right? So that's great of you to think of that way. And live on Facebook for 60 days, and empowering people with communication. Very powerful, lessons that were that you're sharing, especially with in the Philippines. In the Philippines, Seth, Facebook is very much the social media. So
Yep.
what you just did is that's something that that really resonates with them. All right, so we have our three rock stars now ready for to engage us, answer some of the questions. But before that, we have another rock star that's here, a former classmate of mine who eventually became the dean of our college, the National College of Public Administration and Governance at the University of the Philippines. It wasn't called that name when we were students, but eventually she became dean of that college. So I'd like to present Dean Fe, Mendoza, to provide us with some reactions or nuggets of wisdom from Dean Fe. Go ahead, Dean Fe.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. We hear you.
Until San Francisco.
We hear you right here on the beach in San Francisco.
Okay. Thank you to our speakers who are rock stars and giants in local and national governance and management. You exemplify the characteristics of resilient leaders, and your stories give us good vibes that there are good things happening on the ground. However, a closer look at the manifestation of strength of a leader, more so a resilient leader, leaves much to be desired in the Philippine setting. Resilient leaders have the ability to sustain their energy level under pressure, to cope with disruptive changes and adapt and innovate. They bounce back from setbacks. MMDA chairperson enumerated the programs MMDA is doing in order to contribute to the healing of our land through the One Hospital Command and other interventions with the metro mayors to address COVID surge and the whole of government response to the pandemic. He also presented innovative programs to address flooding and sewage, transportation, and more. Projects like the coal briquettes through Recycling Water Lily, sanitary landfill, and parks and green space development, harnessing technology, having bikes and walking zones to make NCR smart, green, and livable. According to the 2021 10 Outstanding Young Men awardee, who is a woman, Attorney Leslie Cordero, leading teams before, during, and after disasters or crises, which many health practitioners and advocate liken COVID as a super typhoon, Yolanda, would include woman power, political, fiscal, economic, and other dynamics. It would also require breathing, pushing back, and bouncing front. Moreover, it would require a lot of consultation and listening and other essential skills such as leadership, the ability to make tough decisions, hindi po inutil sa pagsugpo ng problema, knack for building networks and nurturing relationships, not destroying or burning bridges just because others are doing better, grit, heart, and tenacity, character, integrity, and credibility. These are tall orders, and only in utopic worlds made perfect and resilient leaders be easily found. But there is hope that this kind of leaders, especially women leaders, may thrive among our other leaders and even ordinary Filipinos who are everyday heroes because they have the heart and passion to serve the Philippines and public interest. According to Athens City, Tennessee City Manager Seth Sumner, resilient leaders reframe, re-engage, reinvigorate. They also use information and communicate well. These are like asking the science of decision making and effective messages that will give our people the right information, especially in the Philippine setting, which has the longest lockdown and the most difficult situation of balancing health and economic considerations. Communication is key, right information is gold. By the way, the shift to digital economy, which has been happening in the USA and the rest of the world, is also happening in the country. The challenges in the making of resilient heroes require a whole of nation approach, not only the whole of government approach. It would also require collaborative governance and a mindset of servant leaders whose commitment includes strengthening institutions, systems, and governance. Our leaders have said that the COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented, but Filipinos are a happy and forgiving nation that would endure and bounce back better given the right mix of motivation, support, and resources, guidance, and leadership. Just do not abuse Filipinos' coping mechanism to be resilient. Filipinos share a common wish to have a safer and better world post-COVID and post-disasters. We also wish for a better life for our family, a house and a car of our own, enough resources to send children to school and travel to where we want and check our bucket list. In the Ambition 2040, we also wish for a clean and ethical government, which will make these dreams come true. So are these wishes put on hold because of COVID and other disasters? I believe so today, because we're all afraid and anxious, even after almost 1.5 years amidst COVID, and because of the surge in cases, with about 813,000 cases as of last night, 79% of which have recovered. But there are exemplars and shining lights who have proven to be more adaptive, innovative, have taken calculated risk, have kept positive attitude, developed others, showed empathy, and communicated effectively because they have plans and would wish others to share their hopes for a better life post-COVID. The list includes our speakers and rock stars today, and the members of our successor generation come 2022. But we need more to stand up and be counted, because resilient leadership is about all of us working and healing as one. I again thank the speakers and their good stories. Our good friend and NCPAG faculty affiliate, Mayor MMDA Chairperson Ben-Hur Abalos, City Manager Seth Sumner, resilience expert from World Bank, Attorney Leslie Cordero, has have to be cautious in not abusing Filipinos' resiliency and sense of nationhood. Thank you, and mabuhay tayong lahat.
Ay, mabuhay din, former Dean Fe. You know, I told you she was going to give us wisdom. All right, so don't leave your seats, because this is the time we're going to ask questions. I'm monitoring the chat and I'm seeing so many questions there, right? So we're going to have the Pasay City legal officer, a good friend of mine too, a student at NCPAG, who is also the dean of the college, the law school at the Pasay City College. All right, so Attorney Ver, do we have questions for our speakers from your end?
Hi, good morning, Doc J. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A portion. Actually, it will be we have series of questions for our panel speakers. Actually, From our sponsor, I think I will just have to start first asking our sponsors to give their respective questions. So the first one, actually, we have from the Alumni Association of EIM, the immediate past chairperson, actually, and the former general manager of MMDA and Philippine Bomb Society Advocates Incorporated. We have Ms. Coratec Jimenez. She'll be asking question to City Manager Seth Summer. Please, Ms. Jimenez. Yes, you can unmute, Mom.
I'm trying. There.
Yes,
First
yes.
of all, good
We can hear
morning.
you now.
Yes. First of all,
Morning.
thank you very much. The Alumni Association is in support of this webinar, and through AWFL Bisnar, and thank you very much. So anyway, I'm supposed to ask a question to the city manager, Seth Sumner. Okay, sir, you're always, I watch your friendly city updates. Okay, just to get to know you, because I said, where is Athens City in Tennessee? So you're just one of those cities, smaller cities actually in Tennessee. And I had to ask my classmate who lives in Nashville. Okay, so my question is, you're always known to be very good with interconnectivity and conversations. You love conversations with your citizens in Athens City. As a leader, because you can be tested as a leader, I used to be the general manager of MMDA, so any complaints of the 14 million Filipinos in Metro Manila, I have to be always, responding, okay, especially for traffic and flooding that the chairman has mentioned earlier. Okay, how fast do you respond to the complaints of your residents?
So it really has to depend on a few things. One thing that we created, and we're a very small city. I only have 120 employees, and so we run very thin. But we created a public relations team out of already existing employees. I have an assistant who leads that team, and then they are members, one member from each of our major departments. I have 10 departments in the city. So police, fire, parks and recreation, we go through those things. And they're able to manage our social media accounts and make sure that they are turning around and making sure that folks are getting the best information they can. We have changed and updated our phone system. We have moved we've just built a new website. And so it's difficult. And the Philippines and the United States are both republics, and we utilize democratic practices. And sometimes we have to make sure that we're able to get the right information to the right people. And so turning around a complaint and answering it depends on how it was brought to us. And so it's not just a phone call to City Hall anymore. It could be on any number of social media platforms. It could be on our website. It could be in a written letter, a phone call. It could be word of mouth. And so now we have multiple platforms that we have to be engaged in, and we have to have folks that know how to deliver the right message. And so I tell my staff, number one is we serve at the will of the people, one, but two, we serve to educate the people about our governmental processes. Because if you have a complaint that deals with your local government, you likely don't understand the processes that it takes to answer your complaint. But more than that, you don't care. You just want your answer. I'm mad and answer me now. Yes. And so we have to serve to educate that. Thank you for your call. And, this is the process that we have to go to. And thank you for your patience. And this is the right person to talk to. And we will make sure that person calls you today. And so it's just being gracious and being humble, and be informative so that we educate of what the process is.
if I just I just make a follow up. How do you handle with your vaccination? Because right now that is our problem in the city. And I was once, I got a confirmation. I went for the vaccination, but I was asked to step out because I don't have my text message for confirmation. So how did you manage with your vaccination, sir?
So ours is managed actually through the state of Tennessee and through private providers. We have a local office that is the health department that handles the governmental side, and then private healthcare providers, whether they're pharmacies or hospitals, they're also able to give out the vaccine. Right now, there's 3 different vaccines that are available: a Pfizer, Moderna, and a Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson's been pulled though. So what we did through our health department, we have a very large public park that has a giant shelter that we use for rodeos and things of that nature. But we're able to get cars, many cars, out of the weather, and we use the National Guard, our local National Guard, and nurses teamed up to deliver mass vaccinations. So we use an online service. I think, as you were describing,
Yes.
you check your eligibility, one. And one thing that I'm very proud of in Tennessee is we made, more than any other state, we made the vaccination equitable. It wasn't just a mass rollout and whoever wants it, come get it. We went first to the most vulnerable populations. So if you were 75 and older, then you could register and come get the vaccination. And then as that dwindled, then a couple weeks later, we moved it down to 65. And now just this week, we've opened it up to all residents, anyone 16 years of age or older. But we're doing it through an online reservation service. You show up, and guess what? We've had enough vaccinations, thankfully, now that if someone just shows up, whether they have a reservation or not, they can wait until all the reservations go through. But we've always had enough vaccinations that everybody wants one, gets one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sumner.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez, and thank you, City Manager Seth Sumner. Now for, again, our next question from our sponsor, from the Executive Director of Sol PH, our partner actually for this conference. Sol PH, by the way, is a civil society group of business executives and professionals helping to rekindle the soul of the nation. So we have Mr. Gregorio Atienza, and he will be asking question actually with Attorney Leslie Cordero. Mr. Atienza, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me and to the honor to ask questions. Attorney Leslie, thank you for the very focused and concise crash course on disaster risk reduction and management. My questions have to do with execution and the management of what appears to be a very beautiful framework that you have just given, very positive, very clear. But the questions are on political risk reduction as well as the execution. The first one is, I did a bit of reading on the NDRRMC law, and I found out that the lead agency is the Department of National Defense. Wouldn't it make more sense if the paradigm shift is for disaster preparedness to have at least the DILG as a co-equal partner, no? So that there is no confusion, that the work is more before the disaster rather than the response, which typically the military is involved in. I understand about the mobilization resources, but the paradigm I think can be improved, no? To put the burden of preparedness on the DILG and the LGUs. The second one is, can we not have a cadre of competent, professional, non-partisan staff? Can we not professionalize disaster risk reduction management per LGU? Because this is a recurring problem regardless of any administration. And it's really a biennial effort, no?
Yeah.
The third one is, for civil society groups like us, can you educate us on the metrics for what makes for a resilient leader, a prepared leader, is what you're saying. The resilient leader is a prepared leader. What metrics are available to civil society groups in order to pursue and hold people, leaderships at the LGU accountable to make the community prepared? It's a mouthful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Very interesting and loaded 3 questions and comments. Number 1, allow me to share that while our law in 2010, the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, was pioneering at that time, with the recent disasters plus compound risk of various pandemic and other crises, it's crucial to revisit the kind of structure that we have and the system that we have. And the government is currently doing that. For the past 3, I think, State of the Nation addresses, it was highlighted the need to create a stronger agency. That concept of having the Department of National Defense lead the disaster agency has been done because of an archaic concept of civil protection agencies. And that's why your Office of Civil Defense, which is the secretariat of the NDRRM Council, is lodged with the Department of National Defense. But the move now is to create a Department of Disaster Resilience. And you can see that in terms of terminologies as well as focus, that the preparedness, risk reduction aspect is now highlighted. You prepare better even before the disaster happens, rather than just respond and react. But again, the political dynamics, considering that this was pushed in 2017 and we're now at 2021, right? So how many years does it take and how many more disasters does it take for the flashpoint to push and actually pass this law? And I think it's badly needed right now, right? Instead of creating task forces, doing stopgap and band-aid solutions, which are ad hoc, things like what's happening in the pandemic, it's difficult. I'm sure Chairman Abalos will also bear me out on this. The second thing that you have mentioned is on professionalizing the DRM officers. And in that proposed bill of creating a Department of Disaster Resilience, there are provisions already that includes that professionalization. But again, better said again or pushed at the level of legislation than the execution, right? And the next question would be, where do you get the line items to finance some of these regular positions? But again, I argue and push that it's more costly to have people changing every 3 years in managing some of these disasters and crises, rather than putting a line item specific for DRM officers who are professionals and training them similar to what is being done in other countries. And we have a lot of models in other countries to do this. The third one on CSOs. Crucial for CSOs to also be a part of the conversation, to get a seat at the table. And to do that, to be equal and respected partners. And there are several rules specifically on helping in service delivery, outreach, consultations, and promoting transparency and accountability. And we're trying that in previous disasters, like bringing in third-party monitoring teams. And CSOs can prepare better by looking and taking stock of your core competencies, because there are several, right? And what we need to do is an inventory of who does what and what each one is good at, and having an opportunity to get invited and to plug in also. A few years back, learning from Typhoon Yolanda, private sector was also fragmented in terms of they come to government with their own offers that they can help, and that's much welcome. But what we told them is that you need to organize yourself, have an umbrella organization, and take stock of what are your core competencies, comparative advantage of your businesses, where you are operating, so that when there are crises or disasters, it's easy to farm out. And I think this will be the same for CSOs.
Okay, just a parting comment. the essential skill set for a team leader that you mentioned, very impressive. For me, it reads more female than male. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greg, Attorney Cordero. Now we go to the next of our sponsor. The sponsor actually is the former mayor of the municipality of Minalabak, Camarines Sur for 15 years. At present, he is the publisher of Bicol Standard and radio announcer of 91.9 BBS DWLB FM in Naga City. And we'll be asking question for MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos. We have former Mayor Hel Basmayor. Mayor, please.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Chairman. I would like to address this question to you as a way forward. Based on your experience as former mayor and now MMDA chairman who coordinates the COVID crisis policies between the mayors and in Metro Manila, how do we improve how the national government through IATF cascades the policies down the line, and the manner the IATF obtains feedback to minimize the seeming disconnect between the national government and the local governments and the end users from remote areas to effect more robust and resilient leadership?
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that question. But before answering it, I would just like to add to the comment a while ago of Ms. Leslie about creating an agency for the disaster risk. I'm with you, ma'am. It's about time. I think it's with Congress right now. It should really be supported. It's about time that we have an agency level for this disaster risk management level. And in answering your question, sir, right now, IATF is really composed of all the cabinet secretaries. Actually, we meet every week here. And every kind of policy, it's always the health theme against the economic theme. They try to calibrate always what could be done. But before this, we got this technical working group. The technical working group, they meet every Thursday, and every Saturday, it's now elevated to the IATF for any decision. The way it was created, I think, for me, it's quite ideal. It's ideal because you've got a technical working group going through this IATF. But for me, like MMDA, for example, it's so hard for me because I have to coordinate with 17 mayors, get their position, what are their stand. Remember, each mayors of Metro Manila, they're autonomous. Each of them have their own stand. Some would like curfew, others will not. Some would like ECQ, others will not. But you know what, sir? The thing is, I'll go first to NCR. The thing is, one of the way to make this more effective is to get one voice for the mayors of Metro Manila. That is the key. Because if areas like Manila, Quezon City, they're huge. Pateros is just very small. Pateros, Mandaluyong, San Juan, they're the smallest. No? So the key is to get one voice, one region. So that was the key last year. Before, if everyone wants to vote ECQ, it's all ECQ. If we have one policy, it's all one policy. Why? Because we have very porous borders, very porous. No? So it's useless to have different kind of policy here. But, and this is a big but, something happened to us last February. February 22, I remember that date. We're about to go into MGCQ, a much, I would say, not that strict kind of ECQ. But we were vetoed by the president. At that time, there were only five cases in the Oplan Kalinga. Oplan Kalinga is our hotels. But after 5 days from February 22, this was about February 27, I heard this plea from Mayor Emmy of Pasay. And when we saw Pasay, wow, the numbers are really very alarming. There was really a surge. And we were surprised that the numbers were more than, it's always doubling every day. So at that time, we thought it was nothing. But true enough, it was really the variant that caused it. If you're going to look at this from Pasay, it transferred to its neighbors and then all the way. That is when we've asked IATF, why don't we include the borders of Metro Manila, Rizal, Bulacan, Cavite, because they will just go to our areas and there will be another round of infection. It's useless. Might as well increase the bubble. It was then that before that, Metro Manila had this, I think it was March 15. We had our own curfew. We had our own age. But after 1 week, IATF pronounced that there will be ECQ for the whole of Metro Manila. And true enough, it will bear me out. The reason is really the variant. One of the main reasons here is the variant. Now, with reference to this, what am I trying to drive at? Right now, it's really hard for us here in MMDA, for the LGUs. Why? I'll tell you first what's happening on the ground so that you will know. We are concentrating on the testing. After testing, you have to go through contact tracing. After contact tracing, you have to isolate and quarantine. After that, you have granular lockdowns. Just today, we've got about 140 granular lockdowns in Metro Manila. And it was really strained the budget of the LGUs. Why? You have to give meals, morning, lunch, dinner, and grocery packs. And then after that, they will tell you, okay, mayors, you have to give this ayuda, you'll be in charge. Mayors, you also have to have this vaccination. So you will see right now, each of the mayors of Metro Manila are so busy. But this is the silver lining. A lot of other agencies, even NGOs, are now helping out. Okay, let's go first to contact tracing. The problem with contact tracing is before DILG gave, I think DILG has about 15,000 contact tracers. They were given budget under Bayanihan 2, if I'm not mistaken. But all of a sudden, it stopped. So the mayors were caught off guard. So I called up DILG and asked them if we still have this contact, and they told me no more. So what did we do? The mayors already hired their own contact tracers. MMDA, I have to scrape about 600 contact tracers, and it's good that the police gave me 367 contact tracers. But the good news is Secretary Bello called me up the other day, and he allotted 5,000 contact tracers for Metro Manila for 10 days. But what we're going to do is this 5,000, we're going to maximize it, make it instead 1 month, the same budget, nothing else. Okay. Number 2, isolation. It's good that I would like to thank Secretary Ling Briones because she allowed us to make the full use of all schools now in Metro Manila, all schools. There are only 3 conditions that she gave us. Number 1, it should only be used for vaccination or quarantine. Number 2, if it will be for quarantine, never use it for vaccination. And the first one is she told us that you could use it if there's no other facility left. So it paved the way for more isolation. And now the problems are the beds. Senator Gordon of Red Cross called me up. He told me, Mayor Abalos, Red Cross will answer for all the beds. We're going to provide doctors, nurses, ambulances for all cities in Metro Manila that you could point to. Wow, that's a welcome respite right now. You know why? Right now, aside from these isolation wards, we have this Oplang Kalinga. These are, actually, it's MMDA also is managing this together with the OCD. These are the hotels that we're getting for the isolation. It's very, very expensive. It's very costly. And right now, it's about 90% occupied as I'm talking right now. The patients are really so full. So this is what is happening on the ground right now as I'm talking. What am I driving at? These are things that are really unexpected. February 2, we're supposed to go to GCQ, and then to modify GCQ, just 5 patients in these hotels. Now it's 90% full. And not only Metro Manila, but it's going out all over. it's because of these new variants. But before this, if there's one lesson that could be learned, at least in Metro Manila, is that I would really commend all the mayors. No matter how big that area is, like Manila, Quezon City, if we vote, they vote as one. There are issues that sometimes only one vote would separate, but they follow, everyone follows. And that is what brought Metro Manila up. I'm just hoping right now that the report of Okta is good, that this reproduction rate, of course, the surge is still there, it's going up. But at the very least, the reproduction rate of the virus is now, is what I could share you, sir, right now, of what I feel about this whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Benhur Abalos, and thank you likewise, Mayor Basmayor, for your question. Now we'll move to our last, well, not the last, but our fourth sponsor actually from GMA Regional TV, from GMA North Central Luzon. We have Claire Lacanilao, who will be asking questions for the members of the panel. Ms. Claire, please, from the GMA Regional TV network. Claire Lacanilao, please. Okay, I think we have some technical problem with Ms. Claire Lacanilao from the GMA Regional TV. Okay, I think we also have some questions here addressed to Chairman Abalos from, well, we have GMA RTV. I think we can have now. Ms. Claire Lacanilao, are you here already? From anyone from the GMA Regional TV? I would like to ask questions from our sponsor. Okay. Yes, please.
Hi. Perception about the decision of our government and approaches right now with COVID in relation to your previous explanation how the mayors cooperate with each other. Is there another way that the national government is doing for us in the coming months? We could open up now the country from the foreigners and to the new investors.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you for your question. Actually, it's an issue between, the topic of set a while ago, it's about calibrating health and the economy. It's really always the issue, not only in the Philippines, but all over the world. We've seen surges, not only right now as I'm talking, I mean, we've seen surges in France, in Poland, in Germany, all over the world. But as far as the Philippines is concerned, and this is what I've really seen with my own eyes, I've been always talking with Secretary Charlie Galvez. The sad thing is really the vaccines. We have ordered vaccines here. The mayors have ordered vaccines. They've even paid for it, even the private ones. But the sad thing is they are delayed again. And we've seen even on papers that, pardon me for it, but poor countries are not getting as much vaccines as the richer ones. And that is the sad reality here. But for the meantime, we must be on the ground and really maintain this minimum health protocols, this testing, this isolation, this contact tracing. And our heroes, our doctors are still there. Almost everyone has known someone who's been a victim. Even I've lost my mom last January to COVID. It's very painful. I do not want anyone to really experience this again. That's why right now, as far as our agency is concerned, what we are doing is really helping the mayors, because there are some mayors, there are some municipalities, cities who are really quite, I would say, rich in their own. They've got so many manpower. They've got a lot of logistics with them. But others, LGUs, are not so fortunate. Others don't even have their own hospitals. That is why with MMDA, we have hosted this one hospital command so that more or less we could help in transferring patients to other hospitals. And not only Metro Manila at this point in time, but increasing the bubble to Rizal, Bulacan, Laguna, and Cavite. Thank you, Celia.
I would like to ask a follow-up question, sir. So, do you have any idea how long will take this quarantine, or are you going to extend this ECQ in Metro Manila?
Actually, Celia, every meeting, we let the economic team present and we let the health team present, and then we make a decision. It goes with IATF, and it even goes with the mayors themselves. Remember, even mayors sometimes go against the IATF, if you will recall before. There was a time when I think the GCQ was from 15 to 65, but the mayors of Metro Manila said, no, we won't agree with that. We would rather have 18 to 65, because as far as we are concerned, those below 18 under the PEDIA term, they're still children. And not only that, the mayors of Metro Manila even, I think, had a curfew before. When there was no curfew, or the curfew was 12 o'clock, we had it at 6 o'clock. So what am I driving at? What I'm driving at is we always calibrate health with the economy. But right now, we see so many patients in one hospital. I called up yesterday. He told me in a private, I'm sorry, Mayor, but we have 200 patients waiting right now. Cannot accommodate you. No. It's the same scenario probably right now that we're experiencing. But you're also right. A lot of people are getting hungry. Our economy is going down. And this is the report of Secretary Kalchua. Now, how do we calibrate? Possibly going a little bit lower, make it modified ECQ, make it still strict, but not that strict, allow other businesses again to reopen, but very strict protocols on the ground. These are options that should really be considered right now. We talk of dole outs. How much did the government spend here? It's 22.9 billion, close to 23 billion. It's 4,000 for a family of 4. It's 1,000 each, max of 4,000. It's going to be distributed now. But after this, what? To be frank, the right now the financial capacity of the LGUs and probably even of the national government, no, it's not that rich. No, not at all, because we based our income, our projections on the business last year, and last year was already bad. So we're looking at projections of just what, 60-70% of the income last year. So the key here is how to project your expenses for the next coming months. What if there will be a third or fourth surge? We do not really know. We do not really know. So this type of discussion is very timely. We've heard from Ms. Leslie. She's from disaster. How we anticipate problem, our organizational skill, being proactive, how to adapt to things, innovations on the ground.